Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Dunaway and I'm the speech pathologist at Wheatley School. And today I'll be talking about some of the basics of how to implement AAC or talkers in the home. So let's get started. Okay, so this is part one of a series that I'll be doing about just the basic ideas of how to use AAC in the home. And the first three skills to learn that will kind of form the basis of everything else that you learn about AAC are modeling, so that's showing how to use the talker, making things meaningful, which is showing what the meanings of the words on the talker are, and then inviting communication rather than demanding it. So today we're going to talk about modeling. So how do we learn new words? Well, the first thing, of course, is that we see or we hear them, right? If I say horse in Hungarian, you're not going to know how to do that unless I've told you, right? Unless you already speak Hungarian, but you've heard it before. That's the first step. So that's the same is true of sign language, the same is true of the device. You have to have seen it done before you know how to do it. By 18 months of age, babies have heard approximately 4,380 hours of spoken language. And we don't expect them to be fluent, right? We're not expecting an 18-month-old to write an essay or give us a speech. They just know some language. If AAC users only see their talkers modeled for them twice a week for 20 to 30 minutes, that's about what a speech pathologist would do with them, how long do you think it would take them to have the same amount of exposure? 84 years. That's a really long time. That's why your role is so important here. Okay, so what is modeling? What am I talking about? Modeling is showing how to use the talker by using the talker. So this little graphic here will kind of give you a better sense of that. The idea is you want the same language going in that you're expecting out. So if you've ever heard of a language immersion program, like a Spanish immersion school, it's the same idea there. By getting a ton of exposure to that language, you're then able to speak it more effectively. And that's part of the learning process. If we are only giving spoken language, but expecting the student to use the device, that can be a real struggle. Most people have never seen a communication device used before. Maybe you hadn't before your child got one. That's not unusual at all. We also can't expect that the child has seen it used. Maybe there was one in their classroom that another student had, but a lot of our students have a lot of trouble with incidental learning. They don't pick up on those things. So they've probably really never seen it. So we're going to help them by giving them both aided language, meaning using the talker, and spoken language. And we're hoping eventually to get both back out. So why do we model? It introduces the device as this way of communicating without there being a demand. And so think about, if this is the child's first language, think about how we teach a baby their first language. We talk to newborns, but we're not expecting anything back from them. We're not like, say it, do it. Why aren't you talking to me? We know that we can't expect that. We're just exposing. And that is how children start learning words. And the great thing is that's how you learn where words are on the device too. It's a really important first step. You're both learning together, and it provides that language immersion. Okay, so I still haven't really shown you what I'm talking about. So how to model? Well, this is just, might seem obvious, but you're gonna use the device yourself. So you're gonna focus on meaningful, motivating activities if you can, or just whenever you're free and your hands are free, that's fine too. So what does that look like? Let's take this example of the playground. So I'm looking at this picture here of the playground and I might say, oh,
Play.
I love to play. I see
Swing.
swings. I like to swing.
Swing.
Oh, look, I see the jungle
gym.
Maybe we can play on the slide.
Slide. I like to play.
I like to play on the playground. So we're going to start by just talking about what the child is doing. That's the easiest way to get started with this. You're kind of becoming their narrator. And you're going to do that in first person because a lot of our students at Wheatley and a lot of children with autism in general have a lot of trouble switching language around between first person and second person. So an example I think of a lot is I have a lot of students who, when they need help, say they can't tie their shoe, they'll say, "Do you need help?" Because that's what they've heard in that situation a lot. They've heard adults ask them, do they need help? So what we want to do is give that first person language. I need help. That way there's no perspective taking shift that has to take place in their minds. We're giving them exactly what we're hoping to hear. So the other important thing is really focusing on what they're showing you with their actions and not necessarily what you want them to do. And this can be really tough. It can be really tempting to use the device to communicate our voice. But you have a voice. I have a voice. I don't need to say to a student using a device, "It's time for gym." I just said it right now. What I am modeling for the student is how to say what they are thinking and feeling, even if it's not what I want from them. So let's take the example of you get home from a shopping trip and you are thinking, okay, I need to get inside. All my food is going to get really warm. We need to go inside right now. But your kid doesn't want to get out of the car. And so they start kicking the doors and they start crying and they're shouting. Well, you might be really tempted to use the device to model, go inside, go house, no car. But that's not what they're showing you. You can use the device in that case to show them how to use language to protest functionally using language. So you can use the device to say, more car, no house. Is that what you want to have happen? No. But it is what they are communicating to you with their behavior. And ideally, we're hoping that they can use language instead of those challenging and maybe dangerous behaviors to tell you what they want. So if they learn that by saying more car on the device, you will say, okay, 1 more minute, then we'll go into the house. You get 1 more minute of car. That might be reinforcing enough that they'll go, oh, maybe next time I'll use that device and I'll say more car instead of just starting to scream. That would be great. That's why it's really important to show what they are expressing and to follow their lead. Because we want this to be their voice, and to form that connection, we really have to show them how to use it that way. So a lot of people get stuck on just worrying that they'll do it wrong. Guess what? You're not going to mess up the device just by pressing the wrong button. Sometimes we all mess up what we say. That's okay. That's part of communication. I have definitely said the wrong word before. I'm sure you have too, right? It's not a big deal. You just say, oh, that's not what I meant. There's also times that we have trouble remembering what word we want to say. That happens a lot as we're learning a language, right? I have this quite a bit if I travel where I'm like, oh, I want to go to I don't know how to say it. That's going to happen a bunch with the device where you're going to think, where is that word? You're going to think, okay, so today is Earth Day. Let's talk about Earth Day. Where would Earth be on the device? Let's see. I'm thinking it could be in places. I don't think so. I think maybe it's in groups. Groups. It could be geography. Oh, maybe it's in space. Oh, hey, I think I see it. I think it's over here. I see
Earth.
Oh, there it
Earth.
is. Let's practice that again. It was in groups and then space,
Earth.
Earth. Cool, we found it. So that's an example of how you can talk the child through how to find words on their device. Just like you maybe talk them through how to do other things, right? How to tie their shoes or how to brush their hair, how to brush their teeth. You're kind of just talking it through so that they're figuring out what to do in that situation, what to do if I don't find a word, how to think it through. And you're learning together. Now you both know where that word is. How much to model? This is a question that I get quite a bit. How long am I doing this? And when am I expecting them to start using it? And the answer, of course, is it depends. So sometimes I will model 1 or 2 words on a device and my student will immediately grab it from me and start using it themselves. And by the end of the day, they are completely communicating to me by trying to take other students' devices. They want one of their own. They're ready. Sometimes it takes a lot longer than that. And then sometimes there are students where I could model for the rest of my life, and unless I actually really kind of had them do it at some point themselves, they would not become interested. So it really does depend quite a bit. The basic guideline we use about how much to model is 4 to 1. So 4 demonstrations of the word, say book, you're showing book. Let's read a book. Let's get a different book 4 times before you're expecting the child to say book themselves on the device. But they'll let you know if they need more or they need less. So like I said, if they immediately use the word book, great, you're done. You don't need to model that word anymore. You still can, but you don't need to. They can do it themselves. There also might be times where you can tell, wow, they're really not getting this. I just need to be modeling a lot more. And you'll know that because they're not using it themselves independently. If this child is not grabbing the device on their own and starting to use it, that tells you more modeling is needed. It doesn't mean you can't ever ask them to use it. You should be sometimes asking them to use it at about that 4 to 1 ratio. So our website, the MESD website, has some great resources available for touch chat. So I would definitely recommend taking a look at what we have. So here are some tutorials, and this will show you some basic things like editing words on the device or changing the voice. Here are some low-tech books. We use a lot of low-tech books as backups for Wheatley students because laminated books, this is a version of touch chat that's laminated. This isn't going to be dangerous if it hits someone. So sometimes our students, if they're not in a great mood, we will use this instead until they've calmed down a little bit so that they still have the opportunity to communicate, but they are not going to injure themselves or someone else with a book. There's also a touch chat YouTube channel that has a lot of tips and some examples of children using the device. And here is a video I made about how to target basic 2-word requests using touch chat. So thank you for joining me today. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time when we talk about making things meaningful.